I sat across from my boss, Nathan Kruger, watching him practice the speech he thought would break me. His hands were folded on the desk, his expression careful, sympathetic but firm, like a doctor delivering bad news he'd already moved past. "Arlene, you're an exceptional account manager. Your numbers are outstanding. But the senior director role requires a different skill set." He paused, letting that land. "We've decided to go with someone who has more leadership presence." Leadership presence. That's corporate speak for something else, and we both knew it. I kept my face neutral, hands resting calmly in my lap. "Who got the position?" Nathan shifted slightly. "Preston Galloway." My stomach dropped, but I didn't let it show. Preston Galloway, Nathan's former college roommate, the guy who joined our firm 8 months ago and hadn't closed a single major deal. The guy who spent more time on the golf course than in client meetings. The guy who called me sweetheart in front of executives. "Preston," I repeated slowly. Nathan nodded. "He brings strategic vision to the table. You're valuable where you are, Arlene. Not everyone needs to climb." I smiled. "Not the warm kind, the cold kind. The kind that comes right before you burn something down. My name is Arlene Whitmore. I'm 34 years old, and for the last 7 years I've been the backbone of Kruger & Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm. I manage the company's largest accounts, tech startups, financial institutions, healthcare systems. Last year alone, I brought in $4.2 million in revenue. That's 40% of the firm's total income. Preston Galloway brought in $200,000. And somehow, he was more qualified than me. I walked out of Nathan's office in a daze, past the assistants who wouldn't meet my eyes, past the conference room where Preston was already setting up his new workspace. He saw me through the glass and waved. I didn't wave back. At my desk, I opened my laptop and stared at the screen. My client list filled the monitor. 12 active accounts, 3 in negotiation, 2 pending renewals. These weren't just contracts. They were relationships I'd built over years. Late-night calls when launches went wrong. Strategy sessions that turned companies around. Trust earned through competence and care. And Nathan thought I should just stay put and keep delivering while Preston took credit. I opened a new document and started typing. Not a resignation letter. Something better. That evening, I called my oldest client, Sienna Vale, the CEO of a tech company called Apex Innovations. Sienna and I went back 5 years. I'd helped her company survive 2 near bankruptcies and scale to $30 million in annual revenue. "Arlene." Her voice was warm. "I was just thinking about you. We need to discuss next quarter's strategy." "Actually, I need to discuss something else," I said carefully. "I'm considering a change. If I were to leave Kruger & Associates, would Apex consider following me?" There was a pause. Then Sienna laughed. "Are you kidding? Arlene, you're the only reason we stayed with Kruger. Nathan barely knows our company exists. If you leave, we leave. No question." My heart pounded. "I'd need that in writing. Send me the paperwork. I'll sign tonight." I hung up and stared at my phone. Apex Innovations was Kruger & Associates' second largest account. Losing them would hurt. But I wasn't done. I scrolled through my contacts and started making calls. By midnight, I had commitments from 4 more clients, all willing to follow me if I started my own firm. Together, they represented $2.8 million in annual revenue. Nathan had just made the most expensive mistake of his career. The next morning, I arrived at work early. I printed every client file I legally could, contracts I'd negotiated, strategy documents I'd created, performance reports with my name on them. Everything that proved these relationships were mine, not the firm's. I copied it all to an encrypted drive and deleted my digital footprint. Then I drafted a business plan. I'd been thinking about going independent for years but never had the courage. Nathan had just given me the push I needed. By noon, I had a name, Whitmore Consulting Group. By evening, I'd filed the LLC paperwork. By the end of the week, I had a business bank account, a virtual office address, and a lawyer reviewing non-compete clauses. Kruger and Associates had one, but it was toothless. It prohibited soliciting clients, but it didn't prohibit clients choosing to leave on their own. And my clients weren't being solicited. They were running. I scheduled a meeting with Nathan for the following Monday. Subject line, transition discussion. He probably thought I wanted to talk about workload adjustment. He had no idea I was about to detonate his revenue stream. Monday morning, I walked into Nathan's office with a folder. Preston was there too, leaning against the bookshelf like he owned the place. Nathan smiled. Arlene, good timing. Preston and I were just discussing account assignments. We'd like you to transition 3 of your smaller accounts to him so he can get up to speed. I set the folder on Nathan's desk. Actually, I'm here to submit my resignation. Effective 2 weeks from today. The room went silent. Nathan's smile froze. Preston straightened up. Resignation. Nathan repeated. Yes. I've accepted a position elsewhere. That was technically true. I'd accepted a position as CEO of my own company. Nathan's face shifted through several emotions. Surprise, confusion, then something harder. Arlene, let's talk about this. If this is about the promotion, it's not about the promotion, I lied smoothly. It's about growth opportunities. Preston crossed his arms. Where are you going? I smiled at him. I'm starting my own consulting firm. Nathan's expression darkened. You're aware of your non-compete agreement? I am. My lawyer reviewed it thoroughly. I'm in full compliance. Nathan leaned forward. You can't take our clients, Arlene. I'm not taking anyone, I said calmly. But I can't control what clients choose to do independently. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? I opened the folder and slid a document across the desk. It was a letter from Apex Innovations, formally terminating their contract with Kruger and Associates. Effective in 30 days. Nathan snatched the letter, his face going pale as he read. This is Sienna Vale's signature. Yes. You solicited her. I didn't, I said firmly. Sienna called me after hearing I was leaving. She made her decision independently. Check the phone records if you want. That was true, technically. I'd called her first, but I hadn't pitched anything. I'd simply asked a hypothetical question. She'd made the actual decision. Preston looked at Nathan, panic creeping into his voice. Can they do that? Nathan ignored him. His jaw was tight. How many others? I'm not at liberty to say, I replied. But you'll be receiving more termination notices soon. Nathan stood up, his chair scraping loudly. This is corporate sabotage. This is the free market, I corrected. Clients have the right to choose their consultants. They're choosing me. Because you manipulated them. Because I earned their trust over 7 years while you played golf with Preston. The words hung in the air. Preston's face flushed red. Nathan's hands clenched into fists. Get out, he said quietly. Gladly. I'll work remotely during my notice period. I picked up my folder and walked out. Behind me, I heard Nathan's voice rising, yelling at Preston. Something about fixing this. But there was nothing to fix. The damage was done. Over the next 2 weeks, 5 more termination letters arrived at Kruger and Associates. Each one was polite, professional, and devastating. Clients cited changing business needs and strategic realignment. But everyone knew the truth. They were following me. Nathan tried to fight back. He called clients personally, offering discounts, promising enhanced services. He sent Preston to pitch retention packages. It didn't work. The clients had made up their minds. By the time my last day arrived, Kruger and Associates had lost 65% of its revenue. The firm was hemorrhaging. Nathan had been forced to lay off 3 junior consultants and cancel the lease on their satellite office. Preston's promotion suddenly looked like a joke. He was now senior director of a sinking ship. I didn't go into the office on my last day. I worked from home, submitted my final reports via email, and mailed my keycard back. At 5 p.m., my employment officially ended. At 5:01, I sent an email to my former clients, the ones who'd committed to following me, with my new company details and contract proposals. By midnight, 4 contracts were signed. Whitmore Consulting Group was officially in business. The first month was chaos. I was working 16-hour days, handling client calls, managing projects, doing my own accounting and marketing. I didn't have a team yet, just me and a part-time virtual assistant. But the revenue was real. In my first 30 days, I invoiced $320,000. That was more than Preston had brought in during his entire tenure at Kruger. By month 2, I hired my first employee, a junior analyst named Carter Brooks who'd been overlooked at his previous firm. He was hungry, smart, and grateful for the opportunity. By month 3, I had a small office downtown and a second hire. We were lean, efficient, and profitable. Meanwhile, Kruger and Associates was imploding. I heard through industry contacts that Nathan had tried to sue me for breach of contract. His lawyer had laughed him out of the room. There was no case. The non-compete didn't hold up, and the clients had left voluntarily. Then I heard Nathan had tried to win back Apex Innovations by offering them a 50% discount. Sienna had declined. Why would I pay half price for inferior service? She told a mutual contact. Arlene's worth full price. That quote made my entire year. 6 months in, my business was stable enough that I started thinking bigger. I'd been operating reactively, serving existing clients, keeping my head down. But I wanted to grow. So I did something bold. I reached out to Meridian Health Systems, the largest healthcare consulting account in the region. They'd been Kruger and Associates' biggest client for a decade, worth $1.5 million annually. I'd worked on their account for 3 years before Nathan reassigned me to focus on tech clients. I knew their pain points, their leadership team, their long-term goals. I sent a cold email to their COO, Dr. Felix Chandler. Subject line: a proposal worth your time. In the email, I didn't trash Kruger. I simply outlined what I could offer: customized strategy, faster turnaround, direct access to senior leadership. I attached case studies from my recent work. Dr. Chandler replied within an hour. Let's meet. 2 weeks later, I sat in Meridian's executive conference room, presenting a proposal that would replace Kruger and Associates entirely. Nathan wasn't in the room, but I knew he'd hear about it. And I wanted him to. Dr. Chandler listened carefully as I walked through my proposal. I didn't oversell. I didn't make promises I couldn't keep. I just laid out the facts: faster response times, lower overhead costs, proven results. When I finished, Dr. Chandler glanced at his CFO, then back at me. Nathan Kruger has been our consultant for 10 years. I know. I worked on your account for 3 of those years. Why should we switch? Because Nathan's firm is focused on survival right now, not innovation. You need a partner who's growing, not shrinking. The CFO leaned forward. We heard about the exodus from Kruger. You took most of his clients. They chose to follow me, I corrected gently. And they're thriving. I can provide references. Dr. Chandler nodded slowly. Send us your contract terms. We'll review and get back to you. I left the meeting cautiously optimistic. 2 weeks later, I got the call. Meridian Health Systems was switching to Whitmore Consulting Group. The contract was worth $1.8 million annually, more than they'd been paying Kruger. I signed the paperwork in disbelief. I'd just taken Nathan's biggest account, the one that had kept his firm alive for a decade. Without it, Kruger and Associates was finished. Nathan called me the day after Meridian announced the switch. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Arlene. His voice was strained, hollow. Nathan. Silence. Then, you destroyed my company. No, I said calmly. You destroyed your company when you promoted incompetence over merit. Preston was qualified. Preston couldn't close a deal if the client begged him. You promoted him because he was your friend, not because he earned it. Nathan's voice rose. You stole my clients. I didn't steal anything. They left because you took them for granted. You thought they'd stay no matter what. You were wrong. I gave you a career, Arlene. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You gave me a job. I built a career. There's a difference. You're vindictive. I'm successful. You're just mad that I'm better at this than you ever were. He hung up. I sat there for a moment, phone in hand, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. I'd won. But it didn't feel the way I thought it would. It just felt necessary. By the end of my first year, Whitmore Consulting Group had 12 employees and revenue of $6.3 million. We'd outgrown our small office and moved into a renovated building downtown with views of the city. I had my own corner office, something I'd never had at Kruger. One afternoon, Carter knocked on my door. Arlene, you're not going to believe this. What? Kruger and Associates just posted a job listing. They're hiring a senior account manager. I pulled up the listing. Sure enough, there it was, a desperate plea for someone to rebuild their client base. The salary was higher than what I'd been making. The benefits were better. It was everything Nathan should have offered me a year ago. I forwarded the listing to a few colleagues with a simple note, interesting timing. Within days, the industry was buzzing. People were laughing at Nathan's desperation. Some felt sorry for him. I didn't. He'd made his choice. Now he was living with it. Preston, meanwhile, had quietly left Kruger and taken a job at a small firm across town. I heard he was doing administrative work. No client management. No leadership role. Just a desk and a phone. Turns out, leadership presence doesn't mean much without results. 18 months after I left, I got an email from Nathan. Subject line, a request. I debated deleting it. But again, curiosity won. The email was short. Arlene, I know we didn't part on good terms. But I'm reaching out because I'm looking to sell Kruger and Associates. The firm is struggling, and I think it's time to move on. Would you be interested in acquiring it? I think you could turn it around. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Nathan wanted me to buy his company. The company that had refused to promote me. The company I'd systematically dismantled. He wanted me to save him. I drafted 3 different responses. The first was angry. The second was sarcastic. The third was professional. I sent the third. Nathan, I appreciate you reaching out. However, I'm not interested in acquiring Kruger and Associates. I've built something better. Good luck with the sale. I hit send and closed my laptop. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. Some companies aren't worth saving. And some people need to fail so they understand what they destroyed. 2 years in, I was invited to speak at an industry conference. The topic, building client loyalty in a competitive market. I almost declined. Public speaking wasn't my strength. But my assistant convinced me it was good exposure. The conference was held at a downtown hotel. 200 consultants, account managers, and executives filled the ballroom. I walked onto the stage, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the sea of faces. And there, in the 3rd row, was Nathan Kruger. Our eyes met. He didn't look angry. He looked tired, older, defeated. I took a breath and began. 7 years ago, I was told I wasn't ready for leadership. I was told I lacked presence, vision, strategic thinking. What I actually lacked was a boss who recognized talent when he saw it. The room was silent. So I left. I took my relationships, my skills, and my reputation, and I built something new. Today, my firm generates more revenue than the company I left behind. Not because I'm ruthless, but because I value people, clients and employees, over politics. I saw Nathan shift uncomfortably in his seat. The lesson isn't about revenge. It's about worth. Know your worth. And if your employer doesn't recognize it, find one who will. Or build it yourself. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, people lined up to talk to me, exchange cards, ask questions. Nathan didn't approach. He slipped out during the Q&A. I never saw him again. By year 3, Whitmore Consulting Group had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We had 22 employees, offices in 2 cities, and revenue approaching $10 million. I'd been featured in business magazines, invited to sit on advisory boards, offered speaking engagements across the country. But the moment that mattered most came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I got an email from Sienna Vale, my first client, the one who'd taken a chance on me when I was just starting out. Subject line, "Thank you." The email read, "Arlene, I've been thinking a lot about the risk I took following you 3 years ago. It was the best business decision I ever made. You didn't just manage our account. You transformed our company. I wanted you to know that Apex is going public next quarter, and we're going to credit you in our prospectus as a key strategic partner. Thank you for believing in us, and for letting us believe in you." I read it 3 times, my throat tight. This was why I'd left. Not for revenge. Not to hurt Nathan. But to build something real. Something that mattered. Something that was mine. Around that time, I heard that Kruger and Associates had finally sold. A private equity firm bought it for a fraction of what it had been worth 3 years ago. Nathan walked away with enough to retire quietly, but not enough to maintain the lifestyle he'd grown accustomed to. Preston had moved to a different industry entirely. Real estate, I heard. I didn't follow up. They were part of my past. I was focused on the future. One of the things I'm proudest of is how I built my team. I hired people who'd been overlooked, women passed over for promotions, young professionals told they lacked experience, mid-career changers dismissed as too old. I gave them opportunities, mentorship, and real authority. And they delivered. Carter, my first hire, was now a senior consultant managing his own accounts. He'd brought in over $1 million in business last year. I promoted him to partner. He cried when I told him. I didn't think anyone would ever see me, he said. I see you, I replied. That's what good leaders do. The company continued to grow. We expanded into new markets, non-profit consulting, government contracts, international clients. By year 4, we had 40 employees and revenue exceeding $15 million. I was no longer doing the day-to-day account management. I had a team for that. My role had shifted to strategy, leadership, and vision. The things Nathan had told me I didn't have. One day, I got a LinkedIn message from a name I didn't recognize at first. Preston Galloway. The message was brief. Arlene, I know we didn't work well together at Kruger. I wanted to reach out and say I'm sorry. I didn't deserve that promotion, and I know it. You were the better choice. I've learned a lot since then. I hope you're doing well. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to write back something cutting. Instead, I wrote, Preston, I appreciate the apology. I hope you found success in your new path. Best of luck. It wasn't warm. But it was closure. And sometimes, that's enough. Year 5 brought unexpected challenges. A recession hit, and several clients tightened budgets. We lost 2 contracts and had to freeze hiring. It was the first time I'd faced real adversity as a business owner. I gathered my team and laid out the situation honestly. We're not in danger of closing. But we need to be smart. No new hires for 6 months. Salary increases delayed until Q3. I'm taking a pay cut to preserve jobs. My team didn't panic. They rallied. People worked extra hours without complaint. Senior consultants mentored juniors to boost efficiency. We tightened processes, cut unnecessary expenses, and doubled down on client service. By the end of the year, we'd not only survived, we'd grown. 2 new clients signed on, impressed by our resilience. We finished the year at 16 million in revenue. I learned something important that year. Success isn't just about winning when things are easy. It's about holding together when things are hard. And I had a team that understood that. In year 6, I made a decision I'd been avoiding. I hired a COO. I'd been doing everything myself for too long. Operations, finance, HR, strategy. I was burning out. The COO, a woman named Iris Langford, had 20 years of experience scaling consulting firms. She was sharp, organized, and didn't need me to hold her hand. "You're the visionary," Iris said during her first week. "Let me handle the operations. That's what I'm here for." It was hard at first. I'd built this company from nothing. Letting go felt like losing control. But Iris proved herself quickly. Within 3 months, she'd streamlined our processes, renegotiated vendor contracts, and implemented systems that saved us hundreds of hours annually. Revenue jumped to 19 million. I finally had time to breathe. Time to think. Time to plan the next phase. And the next phase was big. I'd been approached by a venture capital firm interested in investing in Whitmore Consulting Group. They saw potential for rapid expansion, more offices, more service lines, maybe even acquisitions. The offer was substantial, $10 million in exchange for 30% equity. I'd retain majority control and operational authority. It was tempting. With that capital, I could scale faster than I'd ever imagined. But it also meant outside pressure, growth targets, and answering to investors. I thought about Nathan. About how he'd let external pressures shape his decisions. About how he'd prioritized appearances over substance. I didn't want to become him. After weeks of deliberation, I declined the offer. "I appreciate the interest," I told the investors. "But I'm building this company my way. Sustainable, intentional growth. Not growth for growth's sake." Iris supported the decision. "You didn't leave Kruger to answer to someone else," she said. "Don't start now." She was right. This was my company. I'd build it on my terms. By year 7, Whitmore Consulting Group had grown to 22 million in revenue. We had 3 offices, 60 employees, and clients across a dozen industries. I'd become something I never imagined, a CEO. A real one. Not someone handed a title because of connections, but someone who'd earned it through competence, grit, and resilience. One afternoon, I got a call from a journalist writing a feature on women-owned consulting firms. She wanted to interview me. During the interview, she asked, "What's the biggest lesson you've learned?" I thought about Nathan's office. About the promotion I didn't get. About the moment I decided to leave. "Don't wait for permission to be great," I said. "If the people around you can't see your value, find people who can. Or build something where your value is undeniable." The article ran the following month. It was titled, "How Arlene Whitmore Built a $22 million Consulting Empire After Being Passed Over for Promotion." The piece went viral in business circles. I got hundreds of messages, people sharing their own stories of being overlooked, undervalued, dismissed. I responded to as many as I could, because I remembered what it felt like to think I had no options. And I wanted them to know, you always have options. You just have to be brave enough to take them. Around this time, I started getting inquiries from competitors. Larger firms wanted to acquire Whitmore Consulting Group. The offers ranged from $30 million to $50 million. I could have sold and walked away wealthy. But I didn't build this company to sell it. I built it to prove something, to myself and to everyone who doubted me. So I turned down every offer. Iris thought I was crazy. "Arlene, $50 million. You could retire at 40. I don't want to retire, I said. I want to build something that lasts. She smiled. Then let's build it. And we did. We launched a leadership development program to train the next generation of consultants. We started a scholarship fund for women pursuing business degrees. We created a mentorship network connecting experienced professionals with emerging talent. We weren't just a consulting firm anymore. We were building a legacy. Year 8 brought full circle moments. I was invited to speak at my alma mater's business school. The auditorium was packed with students eager to hear about entrepreneurship and success. During the Q&A, a young woman raised her hand. What do you do when you're in a job where you're not valued? I smiled. You leave. But you don't leave empty-handed. You leave with your skills, your relationships, and your reputation intact. And you build something better. After the event, several students approached me. One handed me a resume. I graduate in May. If you're hiring, I'd love to work for you. I took the resume. Send me an email. We're always looking for hungry, talented people. As I walked to my car, I thought about how far I'd come. From overlooked account manager to CEO of a thriving firm. From powerless to powerful. From invisible to influential. Nathan had tried to keep me small. Instead, he'd freed me to become something he could never be. Successful on my own terms. In year 9, I made a decision that surprised even me. I decided to write a book. Not a memoir, but a practical guide for professionals navigating career obstacles. I titled it, When the Door Closes, Building Your Own Path to Success. The book took a year to write. I worked with a ghostwriter to organize my thoughts, but the stories were mine. The lessons were mine. The pain and the triumph, all mine. When it published, I didn't expect much. Maybe a few hundred copies sold, mostly to people I knew. Instead, it became a bestseller. Business schools assigned it. Leadership programs used it as a case study. I got emails from people across the world saying the book changed their careers. One email stood out. It was from a man named Elliot, who'd been laid off from a consulting firm and was afraid to start over. Your book gave me the courage to go independent, he wrote. I just signed my first client. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I sat at my desk, reading his words, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in my success, but in the impact I'd had on others. That was the real victory. Not the revenue. Not the awards. But the people I'd inspired to bet on themselves. 10 years after leaving Kruger and Associates, I stood in my office overlooking the city. Whitmore Consulting Group now had 80 employees, 4 offices, and annual revenue of $30 million. We'd been named one of the fastest growing consulting firms in the region. I'd been recognized as Entrepreneur of the Year. But the moment that mattered most happened last week. I got a handwritten note in the mail. No return address. Inside, just a few lines. Arlene, you were right. I destroyed something valuable because I was afraid of losing control. I see that now. I hope you're proud of what you've built. You earned it. Nathan, I read it twice, then placed it in a drawer. I didn't need Nathan's validation. I'd stopped needing it years ago. But it was still nice to hear. Because it meant he finally understood what I'd known all along. You can't kill someone's potential by denying them a promotion. You can only force them to find a better path. Nathan killed my promotion path to protect his friend. And in doing so, he handed me the motivation to build an empire. I didn't take his biggest account out of revenge. I took it because I was better. And now, everyone knew it. I walked to the window and looked out at the skyline. Somewhere out there, someone was being passed over for a promotion they deserved. Someone was being told they weren't ready. Someone was being undervalued. I hoped they'd find the courage to leave. To build. To prove everyone wrong. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's success so undeniable that the people who doubted you have no choice but to watch you rise.